The air aboard the Zarnathi medical frigate was clinically sterile, thick with the scent of ionized disinfectants and humming with soft machinery. Fluorescent lighting bathed everything in a cold blue, and the walls pulsed faintly with life monitor readouts. Tren Paxton sat shirtless on a diagnostic table, his skin blotched red, sweat beading at his temples. His breathing had slowed but still rasped slightly. His left arm bore a fresh puncture wound, poorly bandaged with a gauze pad the size of a coaster. The alien medic, a tall, angular being with pale, translucent skin and compound eyes, paced in tight, efficient loops. "You are experiencing systemic histaminic overload," the medic declared, voice flat and mechanical through its translator. "Severe allergic reaction. Immediate quarantine and stasis are required. Preparation must begin now." Tren raised an eyebrow. "You mean an allergic reaction?" "Confirmed. Critical. You may experience organ liquefaction." He blinked. "Liquefaction? That's not usually how this goes. Your dermal layer is inflamed. Pulse erratic. Risk of neural collapse. We will place you in cryostasis until proper recalibration can be engineered." Wait, Tren said, fishing in the side pocket of his cargo pants. He pulled out a small red and white capsule. "This is just hives. Probably from that spiky fruit thing that looked like a pineapple and tasted like a war crime. I've had worse. Watch this." He popped the antihistamine and washed it down with a sip from a water bulb. Then he lay back on the table, hands behind his head. The medic froze. "You ingested an unverified compound in your current state?" "Yep. It's called diphenhydramine. Earth standard. Been around since. Forever. Works like a charm. Your species self-medicates during anaphylaxis?" "Sure. If you catch it early, it's no big deal." The medic stared, unmoving, for a long moment. "This is unscientific. Extremely dangerous. Tell that to my cousin. He once got stung by 4 yellow jackets and still finished his math exam before passing out." The medic tapped a panel. A second alien, shorter and covered in fine green fur, entered. "Patient Tren Paxton has self-administered a non-certified chemical. Observation required. Prepare containment in case of cerebral melting." Tren sat up, slowly. "No need for containment. Just need to lie down, maybe take a nap. I'll be fine in 30 minutes. The shorter alien leaned in, peering at the rash. "The inflammation is receding. See? Told you." The medic's compound eyes flickered. "How many of these reactions has your species endured?" Tren shrugged. "Hard to say. I've had, like, a dozen different allergies. Dust, pollen, shellfish. My sister's allergic to latex and bananas. My dad breaks out in hives if he even smells cats." The two aliens exchanged a long, wordless glance. The medic turned back. "You consume known allergens?" "Sometimes accidentally. Sometimes on purpose. Depends on the food. This behavior is counterlogical." Tren slid off the table, wobbling slightly. "That's humans for you. We adapt. Or we carry pills. Or both." The medic hesitated. "You must remain for further monitoring." "Sure. But I need to sit somewhere less bright. My head's pounding." He followed the medic to a reclined diagnostic chair in another bay. A monitor above him tracked his vitals. The antihistamine was doing its job, but the fruit's toxins had some staying power. His blood pressure was low, and his heart rate was sluggish. "You are not recovering as rapidly as anticipated," the medic said 20 minutes later. "It was a big fruit," Tren muttered, eyes half-lidded. "Weird spines. Maybe it wasn't fully ripe. We must analyze the substance." "Describe it." "Orange rind. Purple meat inside. Tasted like cinnamon and metal." The medic stiffened. "You consumed Vetsari husk?" "Didn't catch the name." The trader said it was edible. "That is a psychotropic allergen. Banned from 97 planetary markets." "Oh." The medic turned to the assistant. "Begin decontamination protocol." Tren groaned. "How bad is it?" "Your liver may attempt to expel itself. We must act quickly." Despite the dramatics, the medic's treatment involved a smooth line, a serum of neutralizers, and oxygen-rich airflow. Whatever the aliens lacked in panic control, they made up for in biochemical engineering. After an hour of gentle silence and quiet beeping, Tren's vitals stabilized. "You may remain conscious," the assistant said, scanning his forehead. "But you must not exert yourself. Your chemical resilience is disorienting." "Tell me about it," Tren muttered. First time I reacted to shellfish, my throat closed up in 5 minutes. This? Piece of cake. Why do you continue to ingest unknown substances? I was hungry. The assistant tilted its head. You risk neural collapse for hunger? Look, Tren said, I've eaten from gas stations in Utah. After that, nothing scares you. The medic returned, hands full of data slates. We have run simulations. The compound you ingested is now registered in our system. Your physiology is distressingly variable. Yeah, try being a doctor on Earth. The medic's tone shifted. We must consult with Central Command. Your species is a biohazard with legs. You're not wrong, Tren said, slumping further into the recliner. The next day, Tren was confined to a recovery pod with a view of the starfield. He was given a mild sedative to help him rest, along with a nutrient paste that tasted like overcooked oatmeal. His vitals were stable, but his body ached and his skin still itched faintly. A new alien entered. This one had silvery skin and long, flowing robes. I am Director Heska. You are the human who survived Vetsari exposure. Sure am. You are being observed by 17 medical academies. Does that come with a fruit basket? Heska ignored the joke. We will begin a series of controlled allergen trials. Wait, what? You will be exposed to various substances. We must understand your resistance profile. That sounds really unpleasant. Heska gestured. You may decline, but your survival was statistically improbable. Your species must be studied. Tren sighed. At least tell me there's hazard pay. There is not. But we will provide you with food that does not try to kill you. Deal. Over the next week, Tren underwent a series of carefully monitored exposures, pollen analogs, synthetic proteins, trace metals. Some caused rashes. One made his ears swell. Another gave him a headache that lasted 6 hours. But each time, he endured and recovered using simple earth medications. Heska observed every session. Your immune system is chaotic. Welcome to the club, Tren muttered, sipping water. You develop countermeasures faster than expected. That's because we've made a science out of it. Allergy shots, EpiPens, antihistamines. Some folks even get desensitization therapy. That is not common among other species. Tren tilted his head. Guess we're just stubborn. On the 10th day, a containment breach on the ship redirected the medic staff. Tren, left alone, wandered toward the galley. He had been cleared for mobility and was hungry again. The galley AI offered a tray of food cubes, each labeled in several languages. One cube glowed faintly blue. The label read, Simulated Earth Nut Protein Contains Tree Nut Analogs. Tren paused. Well, let's see how close you got. He took a bite. 10 minutes later, his throat tightened. He stumbled to the comm panel. Hey, I need the medic again. Like, right now. Heska's voice answered. What did you consume? Nut analog. Not great. Remain still. Do not attempt to treat yourself. But Tren was already pulling a second antihistamine from his pocket. He coughed, his voice strained. No offense, but I trust my pills more than your glowing tofu. You must not. He swallowed the pill. His breathing eased slowly. By the time the medic arrived, he was lying on the floor, eyes closed, shallow breaths returning to normal. You are not to self-administer during controlled protocols. The medic said, furious. I was about 2 minutes from not breathing. Tren replied hoarsely. Next time, keep the nut cubes away from the Earth guy. Heska stepped in behind the medic. You continue to survive. Barely. I'm not trying to make a point, Tren said. I just want lunch. The medic knelt and scanned him. You require rest. Yeah, I figured. 2 more days passed. Tren's energy returned in full. His skin cleared. He resumed walking the medical wing and even took up helping the assistant recalibrate diagnostic sensors. The aliens were wary but fascinated. Protocols were rewritten. Allergy response charts were updated. Heska summoned him to the observation bay once more. You are cleared for discharge, she said. Finally. But you have taught us much. Your species balances on a knife edge of biochemical chaos and raw ingenuity. Sounds about right. We will be more cautious when feeding humans. Good plan. As he stepped aboard the shuttle back to the supply convoy, the medic handed him a small vial. This is our version of your antihistamine. Faster. Stronger. We refined it using your blood work. Tren smiled. Now you're getting it. The doors sealed behind him. The stars wheeled by. His arm still bore a faint scar where the Vetsari fruit had bitten back. But he was alive, healthier than before, and carrying the galaxy's first alien-engineered human allergy pill. Not bad for a guy who just wanted a snack. 3 days after Tren Paxton returned to the convoy, the first request arrived. A diplomatic courier drone zipped through the docking corridor and latched magnetically to his bunk wall while he was brushing his teeth. He tapped the console and watched it unfold like a mechanical flower, revealing a message cube and a tiny, blinking green light. He stared at it for a moment, toothbrush still foaming in his mouth. Not even a day without something weird, he muttered and spat into the wall basin. The cube activated as soon as it sensed his proximity. A hologram snapped into place, showing a figure with long, spiraled antennae and skin the color of dry ash. The voice came through with an almost musical cadence. You are summoned to the Consortium of Adaptive Physiology. Your participation is non-mandatory, but highly encouraged. Your recent biological anomalies have created substantial inquiry across 7 sectors. Transportation will be arranged. Tren blinked slowly. Do I get breakfast first? A chirp answered him. The drone released a small container from its underside. Inside, a single vacuum-sealed bar labeled Nutrient Brick Basil Flavor. He squinted at it. Of course. 10 hours later, he was aboard a teardrop-shaped intersectoral shuttle, sitting across from a delegation of researchers from the consortium. None of them spoke during the transit. One of them, a quadruped with a translucent torso, just kept watching him through an ocular slit that adjusted every few seconds. So, Tren said, stretching his legs, what do you folks actually want from me? The quadruped's voice was like water over gravel. Biological mapping. Cross-species stress modeling. Your immune system has become a statistical anomaly. Guess that's one way to say you won't die when you're supposed to. Another researcher, this one resembling a vertical eel wrapped in fabric, leaned closer. Have you undergone any gene therapy? No. CRISPR? Nope. Selective immunoresponse training? If you mean allergy shots, sure. When I was a kid, the eel froze. Human juveniles are subjected to antigenic exposures? Yeah. We called it kindergarten. The remainder of the journey passed without further questions. When they arrived, Tren stepped into a vast atrium filled with bioluminescent panels and floating observation drones. He was ushered into a chamber with a floor that adjusted to his footsteps, the surface shifting to match the pressure of his gait. A voice greeted him from a ceiling-mounted speaker. Please remove footwear and upper garments. Am I being massaged or dissected? No answer. He complied, standing on the warm, reactive surface while a thin ring of light scanned him from head to toe. The scan took 4 minutes. During that time, he tried not to sneeze from the scentless vapor mist drifting across the room. When it finished, a section of the wall dissolved, revealing a corridor with 6 different atmospheric gradients visible through transparent barriers. A short figure waited at the end, wearing a suit that looked like it had been built for underwater living. You're the human, the figure said as Tren approached. Last I checked, I'm Dr. Rek. You'll be working with me for the next 8 days. Working, you'll be exposed to environmental stressors. We'll monitor your response. You'll be briefed before each trial. Do I get hazard pay? No. You get data privileges. Cool. I'll treasure those. The first trial began within the hour. Tren was led into a chamber calibrated to simulate high-altitude pressure. The air was dry, thin, and cold. A console displayed his blood oxygen levels in real time, and a wide-eyed technician with feathered limbs scribbled notes while he stood shirtless and barefoot on a chilled platform. Try jogging in place, Rex said from behind a glass barrier. He did. After 2 minutes, his pulse rose, and he felt lightheaded. At minute 5, his vision blurred slightly. Oxygen saturation dropping to 75%, the technician chirped. Yeah, Tren said, panting. That's what it does. Do you require intervention? Not yet. At minute 7, he stopped and sat down. You've reached the threshold of safe exposure, Rex said. Most species would have collapsed. You merely fatigued. That's us. Built to suffer. The next day, they tested his response to temperature flux. The chamber alternated between -10 and 50 degrees Celsius every 11 minutes. Tren's skin flushed red, then pale, then began to sweat. He drank from a hydration tube and endured 4 full cycles before requesting a break. You regulate core heat with such finesse, Rex said, observing the data. We call it being cold and sweaty at once. Later that same evening, Tren was placed in a hypergravity pod. The planetary simulation cranked the pull of gravity to over twice Earth normal. His body protested immediately. His vision darkened at the edges as he gritted his teeth and tried to lift his arms. Muscle strain is within acceptable variance, the technician reported. Tren managed to speak between clenched jaws. You guys ever heard of a weekend? The pod powered down 20 minutes later. He emerged drenched in sweat, muscles trembling. Rek handed him a metabolic gel pack. You metabolize stress hormones with alarming speed. I metabolize sarcasm even faster, Tren muttered, sucking down the gel. By day 4, his sleep was fragmented. They tested his response to low-frequency audio pulses, altered circadian lighting, and nutrient deprivation. He began hallucinating flickers of movement in the corners of his vision, and once mistook a technician's elongated limb for a coat rack. You are entering the zone of neural misfire, Rek noted, watching his eye dilation. Yeah, I'm aware, Tren said, rubbing his temples. Any chance I get a pillow and a nap? You've already exceeded the baseline thresholds of 3 species. Great. Can I exceed the baseline for being left alone? Day 5 brought the microbial exposure chamber. Tren was injected with a controlled bacterial culture native to a swamp world in the Vasian Divide. The strain usually caused fever and vomiting in mammals. Tren registered a slight chill and mild nausea, which disappeared after 2 hours. Rek reviewed the culture's breakdown. Your internal flora is violently competitive. You should see what happens when I eat expired yogurt. By day 6, the consortium began sending observers. Dozens of researchers stood behind the transparent walls, some scribbling notes, others recording. Tren was subjected to an endurance test involving unstable terrain and varying oxygen levels. He stumbled, fell, and got back up. 3 times. Each time, a new set of variables hit: gusts of simulated wind, sudden temperature shifts, and artificial vertigo fields. Why are you still standing? One of the observers asked through a filtered mic. I've been on roller coasters after chili dogs, Tren said, dragging himself upright again. On day 7, Rek met him in the debriefing lounge. Tren was lying on his back, legs propped up on the wall, sipping something that tasted like celery and despair. You've broken several adaptive models, Rek said. That's what I do. Break models. Tomorrow is the final trial. Voluntary. It involves exposure to a parasite known to rewire host neurology. Sounds fun. It's been adapted to be non-lethal. You're really selling it. Most subjects experience temporary emotional disassociation. Define temporary. 3 to 9 hours. Sometimes longer. Tren exhaled slowly. All right. Let's make some nightmares. The next morning, he lay on a reclined platform, wired to neural scanners. The parasite was introduced via a vapor inhalant. Within minutes, his thoughts began to fragment. He felt his memories reassemble in odd orders. His 6th birthday happened before he graduated high school, and his first kiss overlapped with the memory of falling off a bike. Subject entering phase 2, Rek announced. Tren's fingers twitched. He saw colors that didn't exist. He felt grief and euphoria at the same time. Then it passed. He blinked up at the ceiling. What just happened? You were submerged in cross-sensory recall. You began laughing while crying. Then you recited instructions for assembling a lawnmower. Never owned a lawnmower. Your brain made one up. He sat up slowly. You got what you needed? We did. Good. Because I'm going to sleep for a week. Rek tilted his head. You've demonstrated a resilience that's unnerving. Yeah, Tren said. Eyes already closing. Get used to it. Tren woke up with a start and immediately regretted it. His back hurt, his mouth was dry, and the lights in the recovery suite were too white. Not bright, just aggressively white, like they were trying to remind him that hospital lighting didn't care about comfort or mood. Please sit up slowly, said a voice near the doorway. Tren squinted and saw a woman in a crisp navy uniform with gold-threaded insignia on her shoulders. Human. That was new. She held a tablet in one hand and a pair of black gloves in the other. Lieutenant Commander Jess Arlo, Earth Liaison Division, she said. You've been unconscious for 36 hours. You had a mild neural backlash from your last trial. The parasite's residual proteins triggered transient disinhibition. Nothing permanent. Tren sat up, hands bracing him on either side. I hallucinated a conversation with my 4th grade teacher about taxes. Then you're on the tail end of recovery. Do you remember where you are? This place is either a medical research center or a very unconventional gym. Consortium of Adaptive Physiology. You've been through a comprehensive resilience battery. They say you broke 4 predictive models and caused 2 algorithmic reevaluations. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. I didn't mean to break anything. I was just trying not to die. She handed him a small, sealed packet. Inside was a compressed jumpsuit, dark gray with thin polymer tubing sewn into the lining. Put this on. You've got to debrief in 90 minutes. Can I shower first? There's a sterilization pod through that door. Don't touch the red nozzle. 20 minutes later, clean and dressed in the new suit, he was led through a corridor that curved upward in a slow corkscrew. The walls were lined with moving panels that displayed readouts from his trials, graphs, scans, rotating molecular models of proteins he couldn't pronounce. Occasionally, a door would open and someone from a species he'd never seen would glance at him, make a note, and vanish again. He was ushered into a conference room where 7 individuals waited, each seated behind a curved desk. One of them was Heska, the silvery-skinned director who had first cleared him for discharge. The others ranged from insectal to reptilian to a being that looked like a floating net of bioluminescent tendrils. There was only one chair at the center of the room. Tren sat down without being told. "Mr. Paxton," said Heska, "you've completed all resilience assessments. We are prepared to finalize your status. Do I get a trophy? You are to be designated a Category 8 adaptive specimen. We have updated our medical protocols to include your responses." The tendril being pulsed with a violet glow. "Your species' internal variability has forced us to reconsider several long-held assumptions. You recover from destabilization with less intervention than expected. I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a warning." A reptilian delegate leaned forward, its voice deep and slow. "We conducted cross-reference studies during your unconscious period. You are not an outlier." Tren scratched his cheek. "You saying there are more humans like me? Not identical, but similar enough to suggest a pattern." Heska tapped a console, and a projection appeared in the air, a silhouette of a human body overlaid with shifting data streams. "We are offering you a unique designation. Not as a patient, as a contributor." "Contributor to what?" "Our Interspecies Preparedness Initiative. You would serve as a resilience consultant, providing input for cross-species emergency protocols." Tren blinked. "You mean you want me to teach aliens how to not fall apart?" "Precisely. And what does that involve? Because if you think I'm going back into the parasite mist, I'm going to walk out of here and fake my own death. No further experiments. You would act as a living model for adaptive training. Controlled exposure only. No biohazards. And I get to leave this place? You'll be transferred to a central hub, living quarters, access to Earth communications." Tren leaned back, arms crossed. "What's the catch?" "There is no catch," Heska said. "But there is an urgency. Your resilience is not merely of academic interest. Several species are facing bio-adaptive crises. Your patterns may help them survive." He looked around the room, taking in the silent delegation. "All right," he said, "but I want a few things." "State them." "First, food that doesn't dissolve my tongue. Second, a bed that doesn't vibrate when someone walks 3 floors above. And third, I want to pick my own assistant." The insectal delegate clicked its mandibles. "You are not authorized to select personnel." "Then I'm not authorized to participate." There was a pause. The delegates exchanged glances, some with eyes, others with subtle light shifts. "Granted," said Heska. "Choose one from the approved list." "Now we're talking." 2 days later, Tren stepped off the transport shuttle into a facility that looked less like a lab and more like a minimalist hotel designed by someone with a fetish for glass. The corridors were wide and quiet, the lighting was warm, and the air smelled faintly of citrus. A young man stood waiting for him near the entrance, holding a tablet and wearing a badge that read, "Dr. Lewis Quan, Human Physiology Liaison." "You picked me," Quan said, eyebrows raised. "Out of a list of 12. You were the only one who didn't list gluten-free baking under hobbies. I'm certified in emergency trauma and cross-species pharmacokinetics." "Perfect. You'll know when I'm about to fall over." They were given adjoining quarters. Tren's suite included a bed that actually adjusted to his preferences, a private galley stocked with familiar staples, and a window with a view of a distant gas giant. The first few days were calm. Quan ran blood work, updated supplement regimens, and tweaked Tren's diet to counter some of the lingering neural fog. They ran simulations not on Tren, but with him using his reactions to refine training programs for species vulnerable to pressure shifts, toxin exposure, and sensory overload. On the fifth day, Quan entered the common room holding a report. They ran a stress inversion model using your data as a control. The Akari delegates managed to withstand localized hypoxia for 40% longer than before. Did they have to eat mystery fruit to get there? No. Just breathing exercises and a synthetic peptide based on your histamine response. Tren grinned. So I'm officially useful. You're more than useful. You're a blueprint. That evening, Quan invited him to a comparative physiology seminar. The delegates presented crash responses from various species, and Tren offered real-time suggestions based on his own experiences. Try introducing a variable recovery window, he said, pointing at a simulation. Humans don't stabilize linearly. We bounce back in bursts. Maybe they do too. The delegate nodded and adjusted the model. The results improved. By the end of the week, Tren had become a minor celebrity. Delegates stopped him in the corridors with questions. Technicians asked to scan his metabolic cycle. One group requested his childhood medical records, which he politely declined. He and Quan developed a daily schedule, morning briefings, midday simulations, and evening debriefs. Nothing invasive. No needles. No vibrating beds. One evening, as they watched the gas giant swirl outside the observation deck, Quan turned to him. Do you ever wonder why your body reacts the way it does? All the time. And I think we're just good at not dying. We don't always know why. We just keep going. Quan nodded. That might be the most accurate theory anyone's come up with yet. Tren leaned back and closed his eyes. Not bad for a guy who once ate a glowing nut by mistake. The stars outside blinked in slow rhythms. No alarms blared. No tests waited. Just quiet, and the knowledge that for once his stubborn biology was exactly what the galaxy needed.